fans of the RPG Fanatic Show, to yet another episode. This one we're going to talk about something in Game Informer. This isn't going to be a negative review. This is going to just be a positive spotlight, really, on something that's in here that I think people should know about. Now, of course, on the cover, there's the South Park RPG, which a lot of people know about, so definitely was going to talk about. Not necessarily. On page 39, there's an interview with Ken Rolston, who was one of the key designers on some of the Elder Scrolls games with Oblivion. And he's asked by the interviewer, Phil Kolar, a question that I thought was very interesting, his response to it. So, Ray asked him, that he says that he was lucky enough to sit in on the RPG Influencers Breakfast at JDC, the Game Developers Conference, where he talked about game design in a panel with BioWare's Ray and Greg, the two doctors who founded BioWare. It was clear that you disagree with the doctors on some key points. What would you say separates your approach of making an RPG from the BioWare approach? And this is Ken's response, which I thought was very interesting. Our products are very different. They are much bigger believers in the narrative along the vector of story and character. I'm much more in the belief that the player should write his own story by wandering through the world. His response to the themes in the world is what makes a story. That's probably our primary divergence. Since they believe in character and storytelling, they believe in dialogue and heavy investment in that. What I regard an anathema is long periods of time spent in dialogue interfaces. I thought that was very interesting because it's kind of like there's a lot of people that have like the JRPG and the WRPG, the Western RPG stuff. And I don't want to get into that, but I do want to stress that the WRPG, the Western style, it's not as uniform as some people really think it is. There are some big differences between Elder Scrolls and Dragon Age, or Elder Scrolls and pretty much anything BioWare does. There are different narrative models. I would consider most BioWare games to really have a static, non-linear system for the narrative, where basically they're having the dialogue trees, but the dialogue trees don't really change your path. What's the right word for it? Doesn't really change the way that the story flows. It might change characters' reactions to your own character, but for the most part, you're going chapter by chapter through the book. In Elder Scrolls games, the rules look pretty different. There are like specific milestone things that have to be accomplished, but the majority of the game, it's kind of like Fallout. Like 90% of the game is optional crap that will develop the storyline of your character, but you don't really have to do. There's a very small portion of the gameplay you actually have to go through in order to have the game end. End very loosely, because some of the games don't really have much of an end. But the point is this. The point is that there's no WRPG. There's no such thing as simply this is linear and non-linear. There's variance within the non-linearity of the narrative. There are games where your dialogue trees make very little impact in the storyline, and then there's games where the dialogue trees make a huge amount of impact in the storyline. So simply because a game has some dialogue trees in it, some non-linearity, doesn't mean that the whole thing is as non-linear as another game that is also non-linear. There's varying levels of non-linearity in the narrative, in the gameplay experience. So that's something that I just wanted to point out and shine a spotlight on, and possibly get some discussion going in the comments below. What you think about that, and definitely pick up a copy of this this issue of Game Informer. I thought actually it was pretty well done in the interview, and also has some really interesting information about the South Park RPG, mostly because it has the creators of South Park are also interviewed about their thoughts on it. I think it's really interesting that they're going to be a key role in the development of the RPG game. So I'm looking forward to that, because usually like anything that they do, except for maybe that musical they did, I like. So thank you guys for watching, and again, comments below what you think. Laters.
Hey kiddies, it's me, the Student Sword, co-host of the RPG Fanatic Show, and all this other stuff on this channel. Anyway, why don't you take a look at some of these other videos done by the RPG Fanatic, Kerry Martell himself. How about it? Also, like and subscribe to our channel for great justice!